media. First, as you all know, we made an incredibly strong effort earlier this year to attract the Sundance Film Festival to our city. And we had great strides, and we had a great teamwork, and we got into the final 6 of cities across the country that were vying to be the next host of the Sundance Film Festival. Our team saw an opportunity to bring a great event, an iconic event, to our city. We created a partnership between the public and private sector, between the Metro Council, our administration, the state government, the governor, state legislative leaders, to bring people together in support of this important and impactful event. And while we didn't ultimately win that contest, I am proud of the partnership that we put together and the proposal that we put in place. And we are going to continue doing this, continue to be bold, continue to be aggressive, to attract important events, to attract impactful businesses to our community every time we see an opportunity. I know there have been some media requests for the entirety of the Sundance proposal. Now that our participation in that process is complete, later this week, we will be publicly releasing the entirety of that proposal so that the entire community and that the entire world can see how Louisville is serious. We are open for business. We are a place that will invest in events. We are a city that will invest to attract good businesses and good events to our community that have a positive impact for our residents today and tomorrow. And so I'm excited for that to be released so the entire country and world can see how serious we are about continuing to build on the momentum that we have throughout our city. If there are any questions following that release, we'll be happy to answer those at that time. One other topic I want to close on today before opening questions involves a tragedy. Another unfortunate act of gun violence that was committed on Sunday night at PRP. First, want to thank JCPS and their police department, PRP's team, the JCPS administration, the great cooperation that existed between LMPD and the JCPS police department following that act of gun violence. I also want to thank JCPS that did a good job of preventing guns from getting into the stadium. But this act of gun violence that happened in the parking lot at PRP High School, outside a football game, just shows that more needs to continue to be done to get illegal guns off of our street, to get guns out of the wrong hands for when guns are used at the wrong time. It's one of the many reasons, it's just yet another example of why I continue to ask state legislative leaders to give cities like Louisville the local control to implement actions that we know will work here in Louisville to reduce the amount of gun violence, to get illegal guns off of the street. I will continue with this effort. I will continue advocating for this in the halls of the General Assembly in Frankfort, and I will continue advocating for sensible legislation in the halls of U.S. Congress as well. We need more help from our state and federal partners. At the same time, we are always looking for what we can do here at the local level, what we can do with the authority that we have to address and reduce the amount of gun violence we have plaguing this community. In this incident, the suspects in this case were wearing surgical masks and other face coverings to conceal their identity. This is not an isolated incident. LMPD officers see time and time again when assailants, when trigger pullers are wearing masks to conceal their identity. Shooters who are exploiting protections that were put in place during COVID. Well, since 1983, the city of Louisville has had an ordinance that has prohibited the wearing of masks in public. Since Sunday night, the chief and I have been talking about this ordinance, which has not been enforced as I'm aware. It's definitely not been enforced since I was mayor, and I think it has not been enforced since COVID. Well, it's local governments, it's all government's job to adapt. to adapt and to find new tools at your disposal to improve public safety, to make our city safer, stronger, and healthier. I have an incredible sense of urgency of dealing with everything we can, using every tool we possibly can to address this gun violence epidemic that we have, balancing public health and public safety. And so the chief and LMPD and my administration, we are working right now on looking to reinforce this ordinance that has been on the books since 1983 in our city. We'll have more to say that over the coming days, but we as a city need to continue to use every tool in our toolbox to reduce the amount of violent crime in our city. My thoughts are with the entire PRP family, the entire JCPS family, all of PRP, and our entire city that continues to suffer from these senseless acts of gun violence. We can do more, we must do more, and every time my administration and I see an opportunity to do more, we will. Thank you all very much, and I'm happy to take any questions that you all have. We are going to begin enforcing this ordinance again. We think it needs some updating. For example, since it was passed in 1983, there were a couple of amendments, but it was all before COVID. We need to put some new language in there about exceptions. There are current exemptions in the ordinance right now. For example, if you're wearing, it bans the wearing of face coverings in public or public property to conceal your identity. If you're going to boo at the zoo, that is a current exemption. In the light of COVID and what we now know from a public health concerns, we believe that some other exemptions need to be made. So we will be talking about those in the coming days, but we are going to begin enforcing this ordinance. The ordinance is 130.01, wearing of masks, and no person shall, while we're covering any mask, whereby a substantial portion of the face is hidden or covered so as to conceal the identity of the wearer, enter, be, or appear in any place within Jefferson County. And then they go on to list some exemptions. So again, we believe there need to be some amendments to this ordinance that we'll be talking to our colleagues on Metro Council about immediately. But we also believe that this is another tool that we can use to prevent assailants who are purposely wearing face coverings to conceal their identity that are doing that in the commission of crimes. That must end, and we are going to work to end that. The message is that we are going to take everyone's personal and public health very seriously. We will address that through amendments. But let's be clear. Gun violence is a public health emergency that we are dealing with in our city. Over 100 individuals already this year have been killed by gun violence. This is a public health emergency that we must deal with. And when there are tools that we have that we can use to reduce the amount of gun violence, it is critically important that we take every action to implement them. They are absolutely included in the conversation. You know, I'm aware of where we are with respect to public health issues in the community, with respect to cases of COVID, what the impact of COVID is on individuals these days compared to what it was a long time ago. Those are all certainly things that we want to consider. We also want to consider the safety of our streets. And we also want to consider ensuring that people are not exploiting provisions to prevent people from getting COVID or other respiratory illnesses, that they're not exploiting loopholes to conceal their identities to make it easier to commit crimes or to get away with committing heinous acts of violence like the one that we saw at PRP on Sunday night. Right now, the penalty for the violation is, I will make sure I give this to you correctly. Hold on one second. I have it right here in front of me. The penalty is a fine not more than $100 or imprisonment not to exceed 50 days or both. We are looking at all of that. That's why I want to be clear that we are using every tool in our toolbox. At the same time, we want to consult with Metro Council. There have been other cities that have taken action recently. We want to look for some other best practices so we can, when we provide amendments to Metro Council to consider, we want those to be fully and well thought through. Well, yes, we do have firehouses that are in significant need of repair. In some cases, we need to build new firehouses because they are past their useful life. If you look at the long-term capital plan that we released with the passage of with our proposal of the last budget last year, we call for providing significant investments into firehouses over the coming years ahead. So that is definitely part of our plan. We're also looking for other state and federal resources to see if there are other public sources of funding. We absolutely need to improve several of our firehouses in particular that are long overdue for improvements or replacement. Maxwell? It was a fine up to $100 or imprisonment not to exceed 50 days. Again, it's 130.01 is the current Metro Mask ordinance. I believe it's on Oak Street between Dixie Highway and 16th. Is that correct, Jennifer? Okay.
We're actually going to meet this evening at the California Community Center to discuss the two-way conversion of Oak Street between 16th and Dixie Highway. That is one that we would be able to do with local funds that were given to us in the capital budget, so we'll be able to do that one much more quickly. We also have the remainder of the phase one-way to two-way conversions that we're taking another look at. Some of the design was before COVID, so they might be over-designed based on current traffic volumes in certain areas. So we're taking another look at that this fall and spring to hopefully get those into construction by next fall.
And then Main Street is happening.
Main Street, the KYTC main remade is also on schedule to be converted, and I can't remember if it's the east side or the west side that is going first. They've changed it, but that is on their main remade website. You can find those details.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh. We'll be having more details in the coming days. I'm not going to get into the investigation right now with respect to the Sunday night, but LMPD is working very closely with JCPS Police Department on that case. We want and need to solve that, just like we want and need to solve every act of gun violence that happens in our community. Anything else? I'm sorry? Yeah, the question was about the hurricane and whether we're sending any first responders. Our emergency services department has been in close contact through the state with what needs are necessary. The last I heard was that a couple of dispatchers are going to be sent to North Carolina, but we have offered to send other first responders there to assist. But we can get you more information on that, but as I heard as of yesterday, we are sending 2 dispatchers to help out to North Carolina.